Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question asks if I can analyze the mental health and personality factors that may be at work in the life and death of Fred Rogers. Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. So first I'll look at the background of Fred Rogers, then move to the mental health and personality factors. Starting with the background, Fred Rogers was born in Latrobe, Pennsylvania on March 20, 1928. His mother volunteered at a hospital, and his father was the president of the McFeely Brick Company. Rogers generally spent his childhood isolated. He learned to play the piano when he was 5 years old, and he spent a lot of time playing with puppets. When he was 11 years old, his parents adopted a girl, Elaine. Although his parents were well off financially, Rogers experienced challenges in other ways. He was overweight some of his childhood. This led to him being bullied. He spent a fair amount of time stuck at home because of asthma and other illnesses, and he was particularly introverted. People described him as shy. He was able to come out of his shell a little bit more when he was in high school, making a number of friends. After graduating, he would go to Dartmouth College, but then would transfer to Rollins College, where, in 1951, he would earn a bachelor's degree in musical composition. Rogers would marry in 1952. The couple would eventually have 2 sons. In 1962, he would earn a bachelor's degree of divinity from Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, and in 1963, he was ordained a minister by the United Presbyterian Church. Rogers decided to get into the television business because he was hoping he could use it as a way to nurture children. He worked in various jobs in television, but he would be best known for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. This was a half-hour educational show for children that started airing in 1968. We see that Rogers took a break from 1975 through 1979. He came back after that, and the last original episode would air in 2001. Reruns filled that gap in the 70s. The show was really quite different than anything else on television. It featured Fred Rogers entering a house while singing the famous "Won't You Be My Neighbor" song. He would then remove his suit jacket and replace it with a cardigan, as well as remove his dress shoes and put on sneakers. He would visit other locations in this neighborhood, which was represented by a model. Then he would go to the neighborhood of make-believe and have conversations with puppets and human beings. After returning to his house, he would change his clothes and sing a closing song. During the episodes, Rogers was calm, deliberate, and spoke in a reassuring tone. He would cover many topics relevant to children, like going to a new school, getting along with siblings, and dealing with parents who were divorcing. He infused the stories with life lessons and would promote values like generosity, kindness, patience, civility, moral reasoning, tolerance, and self-worth. Rogers also appeared in a number of other media productions. He was interviewed several times. He was a sought-after commencement speaker, delivering over 150 speeches of this type in his career. In 1969, Rogers would testify before the U.S. Senate Subcommittee on Communications. Lyndon Johnson had proposed cutting funding for PBS from $20 million to $10 million, and Rogers was there to make an argument of why that was a bad idea. Because of Rogers' testimony, the funding for PBS was secured, not only for that moment, but for many years to come. It was a particularly thoughtful piece that was well delivered. After Rogers' retirement from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in 2001, he stayed busy working on a number of endeavors. Rogers had suffered from stomach pain for a long time. Eventually, he went to see a physician and was diagnosed with stomach cancer. Although he had a surgery in January 2003, it didn't really help him much. Fred Rogers would die on February 27, 2003. He was 74 years old. Now moving to the mental health and personality factors. I'm not aware of any mental health diagnosis as far as Fred Rogers. When he was a child, he was quite lonely and would get down sometimes, but it didn't appear to be part of any type of disorder. It seems as though he was able to take his early experiences and find good in them, to convert his pain into a positive life philosophy, which he would eventually share with millions of children. Let's take a look at his potential personality profile using the 5-factor model. I remember the 5 factors through the acronym OCEAN: openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So with Rogers, we see a high level of openness to experience. He had an appreciation for art. He was intellectually curious and extremely creative. He played many of the puppet roles on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He wrote hundreds of songs, and he sang most of those songs in the show. We see high conscientiousness. He chose his words carefully. He was deliberate, cautious, competent, well-organized, and had an incredible work ethic. In addition to writing and editing all of the episodes for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, he hosted every episode. With extroversion, we see both high and low facets. Overall, his level was above average. He was extremely friendly and outgoing. He had a lot of positive emotions, but he was not particularly assertive or sensation-seeking. With agreeableness, we see an extremely high level. He was trusting, altruistic, modest, straightforward, empathic, and he valued cooperation over competition. With neuroticism, we see a low level. He was not angry, depressed, or anxious. He did not seem to have any difficulty resisting temptation. Let's take a look at some of the behaviors of Fred Rogers. He was frugal. He enjoyed swimming and playing the piano. Rogers answered each letter that was sent to him by hand. When the quantity of letters exceeded what he could handle, other people would answer them, but he would always check each one and sign it. He liked maintaining a schedule. He would always wake up between 4:30 and 5:30 a.m., pray and read the Bible, take a nap at some point during the day, and go to bed at 9:30 p.m. His affinity for routines is evident in the show as well. There was not much variation across all those episodes. He stayed at a steady weight pretty much his whole adult life, 143 pounds. He said he was a vegetarian for ethical reasons. He never drank alcohol, used drugs, or smoked. Rogers promoted his philosophical values. Let's take a look at a few of those. He believed in equality, fairness, accepting people just the way they were. He acknowledged that people had negative emotions and tried to normalize that experience. He believed people should talk about their feelings and not try to suppress them. He said that if a feeling was mentionable, it was manageable. Rogers made an effort to be kind, thoughtful, and authentic in every interaction he had. Whenever he met somebody, he did not take that for granted. Every moment of his life was important, and in every moment, he was open to finding inspiration. Rogers wasn't always positive. He was not a fan of animated cartoons and fast-paced violent shows. He felt as though these products were bombarding children. He was mortified, for example, by shows where people were throwing pies at one another. Rogers recognized the dangers of pie-throwing-inspired violence at a time when few people did. What Rogers offered was something completely different, a calm, carefully thought-out examination of issues that children could face. The total amount of content he put in each show was actually fairly low. It wasn't about cramming in a lot of information, but rather it was a time to slow down and reflect. The mission of Fred Rogers was really not just about kindness in general, but specifically being a comforting figure for children. He influenced generations of children who would grow up into adults, carrying forward some of the values of Fred Rogers. One of the questions we see quite a bit with Fred Rogers is, was he for real? What I find amazing about Rogers is how people react to him. Even though he was well-liked by millions, many people had a negative initial reaction. You would hear things like, how can anybody really be like that? He must be hiding some dark secrets. Anybody who acts that kind must actually be evil. We even see these urban legends that came up about Fred Rogers, none of which are true. Let's take a look at a few examples of these urban legends. He was a particularly violent Navy SEAL or a sniper in Vietnam. In reality, he was designated 4F by the military, meaning he was not fit for service. It was said that Rogers was not mechanically inclined. He couldn't operate a screwdriver, much less a rifle. The next urban legend said that he was aggressive when the camera wasn't rolling, like his real personality would come out, and it was not a socially acceptable type personality. This, of course, was not true. The strangest one has to be this idea that he was a convicted criminal, and hosting Mr. Rogers' neighborhood was his community service. So I guess people are supposed to believe that when a criminal is sentenced to community service, they can pick from a variety of jobs, like picking up trash on the side of the road, working in a soup kitchen, or hosting an early childhood education show on PBS. So clearly, the urban legends were not true, but there are other theories about Rogers. Some say that Rogers damaged generations of children by increasing their self-esteem, that he was responsible for the everybody gets a trophy phenomenon. I understand their point, but Rogers was just one person saying that self-esteem was valuable, and he really didn't promote it in a way where a child would feel as though they deserved to be given everything. He did value personal responsibility and hard work. It's difficult to accept that he was just an all-around good person, without any pronounced flaws or terrible secrets. I believe that Fred Rogers just wanted to make the world a better place, a more peaceful and understanding environment. I think he wanted to make himself into a role model that he wished he could have had when he was young. So he knew what encouragement or influences may have been missing when he was young, so he created that. He created Mr. Rogers to be that person. Rogers is interesting because his philosophy of life has a substantial parallel with the work of a man named Carl Rogers. I don't believe they are related. Carl Rogers was a therapist who developed person-centered counseling. He believed that a therapist only needed to do 3 things in order to be effective: avoid being judgmental, demonstrate accurate empathy, and be genuine. Later research would reveal that Rogers was not completely correct. Effective therapy requires more than just those 3 behaviors, but the research did reveal that those behaviors are necessary. This is where we get the necessary but not sufficient theory of person-centered counseling. So you have to have those 3 principles at work, and you need to add other things like specific techniques and strategies. Without those 3 principles, all those other techniques and strategies won't be effective. So they really are critical. Fred Rogers lived his life as the embodiment of those 3 principles, and in one sense, established a quasi-therapeutic relationship with millions of people. Those are my thoughts on Fred Rogers. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. I hope that whatever neighborhood you are in, it's a beautiful day in that neighborhood. Thanks for watching.